Yo, welcome back to the Wrestling Strength Podcast. I am your host, Coach Myers, and as always, the Wrestling Strength Podcast is brought to you by Max Effort Muscle. Now, I am not just one of the founders of Max Effort Muscle. I believe in the product. Now, I don't know if you remember this commercial. It was back in the 80s, Hair Club for Men. Remember, not only am I a Hair Club client, I'm also the president. So it's kind of like that catch thing. He's like, I really believe in it. I'm the president and I take it. Well, guess what? I use Max Effort Muscle. We developed these products specifically so I can use them with my athletes. I trust them with my elite athletes. If they're good enough for my Olympic level guys, then they're going to work for you as well. Make sure you go to maxeffortmuscle.com, check out everything we have to offer. And if you've got any questions, just hit me up on the gram. All right. So I got a very special guest for today's podcast. And, before I introduce him, I want to talk about, I kind of pride myself on surrounding myself with the right people. I always say, you have to run with the fastest. You have to lift with the strongest, right? If you're the strongest guy in the room, how are you going to get stronger? You have to put yourself around people that are stronger than you, that are going to push you, all right? Now, that also applies to knowledge. If I know things, if there's something I want to learn about, I don't just go find someone that knows a little bit about it. I want to go to the expert. I want to know to the guy who knows everything, maybe the guy who has really started something so then I can learn at a high level and really understand whatever subject it is. Now, if you've been following my Instagram, you see that I've really got into the hot and cold contrasting lately. I've been doing the fire and ice, the sauna stuff, the cold plunge in the ice, back in the sauna, back and forth. And I'm learning about it, but I got to admit, I only know kind of surface level, especially about the cold plunge. So I wanted to bring on my friend today, Wyatt Ewing, founder, CEO. We're going to call him the commissioner too, the commissioner of Ice Barrel.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Wyatt. Yeah, it's super exciting. So first of all, I just got to say, you guys have seen me using the Ice Barrel, and I absolutely love it. All right, I'm just going to give you kind of my layman's thing about why I like the Ice Barrel better than what we were using before, which is kind of like a horse trough. You got to sit in. I have some disc issues with my back. Sitting down with my feet, high up in the air, seems to kind of, flare that issue up. Sitting down, kind of into the ice barrel feels more natural to me, number one. Number two, it's easy to drain. You have the drain on the bottom. It's very convenient. And I'm just going to say it looks great out there on my platform next to my sauna.
Yeah, 100%.
So
that's awesome.
But so Wyatt, for everyone that's, tuning in today, why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Tell us about, kind of how you got to this point where you founded Ice Barrel, and why you were bringing, cold plunge to the masses.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you for having me. So my journey into cold started really back in around 2017, 2018. And although I would say when I was 11, I went to summer camp. And I was one of the brave souls that jumped into the cold water at the beginning of spring in the Rocky Mountains, and I got my polar badge, right, a little polar bear on it. So that
now, did it feel traumatic or did it feel fun?
It was like I had all my friends around, and so it was a little traumatic at first.
But it was kind of like a way to prove your young manhood at that time.
Exactly. So I was always proud of that experience. And that was the very first time. So I was 11 or 12. And then again, it cold entered back into my life, back in my early 20s. So, but yeah, how I got to the start, I was, always was taking the path in life of sales, preferably at the time, high-end luxury sales. So again, I started door-to-door knocking ADT security systems. And then I took another job selling high-end shoes. And it was there that I sold shoes to this lady who couldn't find shoes because of her feet size. But I was able to find her a pair in the back of the shop. And she offered me a job selling art and jewelry and sculptures, higher end stuff. And that was a very unique experience. But then I kind of maxed out there. I wanted to sell something bigger and better. So I went into high-end home remodels. And then kind of maxed out there, and I went to corporate aviation. So I was selling private jets to buyers all over the world. It was a pretty wild, very tough industry, though.
I don't think I've ever met anyone that sold a private jet before.
Yeah,
let alone rode on one, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's kind of a unique space for sure.
It is. And I would say that it's more like, at the time my mindset was like luxury sales, but it's more like heavy equipment sales. And like the sales role and being a broker for jets isn't like glamorous. It's a lot of contracts, a lot of like reading the aircraft logbooks, and a lot of technical stuff. So not as glamorous, but it does pay well. And for me, it was extremely stressful, high pressure, high anxiety. And I was totally predisposed to that already. Just
well,
my life.
And I think, you know, let's say when you worked in the shoe store, if you couldn't find that woman a pair of shoes, there's going to be someone else walking in that wants shoes.
Totally.
I would have to think in the high-end aviation world, if you don't make that sale, like it's not like you can just find another guy today to take that jet.
Yeah, totally. No, it was,
so the pressure has to be tremendous with each client.
Exactly. And deals do fall through. And a lot of my deals fell through the years. And it was just like, I mean, make or break your year. So very stressful. The company I was working for went through a merger, and I kind of found myself like starting over with a new company. The compensation wasn't the same, and it was a lot harder to win under the new leadership. So I ended up just taking some time. I went to Mexico. I got really sick while I was in Mexico, and just trying to figure out like what's next in my life. And instead, I got sick. I came home. I was sick for like 4 months. And when I got back, I went into this gym. I was like, I just got to get some blood moving because I feel like I'm going to die. And I walk in, and this guy comes up to me. He tells me how terrible I looked. And I was like, that's so rude. You don't like introduce yourself that way. And he was like, well, just try a breathing exercise and a cold shower. And I did. I went home. I was reluctant, but I climbed into the cold shower. And it was so cold, I literally just sat on the shower floor, and I was just shivering and sitting there. And it was miserable. But like the feeling I got out with like the high endorphins and all that, it was way better than the feeling of like stress, anxiety that I had before I got in. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do this again because like this actually feels better.
And what year would this be?
It was 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fairly recent.
Yeah. Not terribly long ago. And when I say I like had bad anxiety, like depression, anxiety, I struggled with it a majority of my life, but it was really heightened by the pressure of the career. Like as I grew and climbed the ladder in the aviation company and in that space, like my lifestyle grew as well. So when I was like starting over, I was like, I've got a lot to lose right now. I had a young family. I have lived in a really nice home, and it was like starting from scratch. So the cold was just like calling me though. And it was like settling my soul, and like it was incredible. So I just stayed consistent with cold showers. And then I went to the family bathtub, taking ice baths. And I wanted just a better way to engage the water. I loved during that time living in Colorado, I could access a cold river or a lake. And whenever I was around those, I would just jump in. And I loved the experience of like, you climb into the river, you climb into the lake, and you just kind of like squat down. You just kind of submerge, you're upright, you're engaged, your spine is straight, you can breathe easily. But then I'd come home and I'd get into like the horse trough, the bathtub, and I couldn't recreate that experience.
It doesn't feel the same.
It's not the same. No. So I knew that I was like developing a passion for this therapy. But I wanted to figure out like what's the best way to take an ice bath. So I told my wife, like, I'm going to just do this. I'm going to go all in. So I left aviation. I just like cold turkey walked away from it. And it was scary. But like I cut the parachute strings and I just innovated on my fall. So I was trying to figure out like, what's the best way? I knew I wanted to stay upright. So started like product development, and I formed a company. Did not have high hopes at the time. I was mainly just doing this for me. And thought maybe I could like introduce a few other people to the power of cold. And I developed a product. I originally made it out of wood, not myself. I worked with some engineers out of California and also Kentucky to make like a custom white oak type barrel, not a traditional whiskey barrel. We had to do a lot so that it wouldn't leak, that it wouldn't fall apart, things like that. But I had an ice barrel, right? And I just started taking it around to different gyms within like a 50-mile radius. And everyone was telling me no in the beginning. It was like ice baths at that time were just for like NFL players, right, on the field. It was not well known. Even like the founders of cold therapy, people that had already been practicing it here in the US, like they didn't have big voices. It was still very like grassroots, I guess.
Well, and when I think back to around probably that same time frame, that would have been, when I was down at Ohio State, working with the team down there, and they have, cold tubs in the training room, but it was kind of almost like, if a guy's banged up or they're really sore, they would put them in there. There was really no thought to the mental aspect of it. And it almost, guys kind of looked at it as like punishment or torture.
Totally.
You know what I mean? I got into it a couple times, the cold tub down there, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I'd never really, thought of like that it felt beneficial other than maybe it would reduce swelling or whatever.
Yeah, I think the knowledge around it, right? When you put intention behind what you're doing, it kind of changes your perspective and your attitude towards things. So, like, you should be aware of how and why you're suffering.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, I guess in my head I was thinking like, all right, if this is just to help some inflammation in my knee, it doesn't feel worth it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go take some ibuprofen at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think too, like maybe we would get in, but only like, all right, if my legs bother me, I don't only get up to my leg. I'm not really submerging myself in it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, my first experience that I noticed was like my attitude improved. My mood changed. I had like this great like endorphin rush. And I think the contrast, I think I was like returning to like a healthy baseline level, but like with the anxiety I was struggling with, it was like, I was so down in the dumps that like anything might've like really helped. But my modality was the cold.
Well, I'll tell you, I introduced, a friend and client of mine to it this past week. So Wednesday he came over for the first time. He said, he's listened to a lot of podcasts about it. He's seen me doing on my Instagram or whatever. He said, I want to come try Fire and Ice. So anyway, he's a pretty high profile criminal defense attorney here in Central Ohio. And so we did it. He did great or whatever. And he messaged me later that day. He said, I feel so peaceful and calm. He said, I have to come over and do this before jury trials. I said, yeah, sure. So like, I think probably the stress of his job, when he has someone's actually their life on the line, he wants to come over and do the ice bath in the morning before he goes and has to plead their case to, free them or whatever the case may be. So
that's interesting. Yeah. I noticed, cause there was some overlap in that transition between leaving aviation. I still had to like provide and make money for my family. So I did some different like consulting stuff and putting like different deals together. But I always noticed that like before cold therapy, I would be in some like intense negotiating thing. And like I would start swallowing big, my palms would get sweaty. But like as I was consistent with cold therapy, like there was something that like changed inside of me. And it was like the stress response in my body was turned off in those negotiating times. And so like I would just sit there calm. It gave me so much leverage. So no, I relate to that.
Yeah, I think it changes your baseline somewhat. And, I've used the sauna for a long time. I've always had a sauna in my house. I just got the new barrel sauna from Redwood Outdoors, which I love. But it wasn't until last year when I started, my friend Brian Peters, introduced me to the hot and cold contrasting. And for me, I mean, I don't know if it would classify as anxiety, but my brain is always going a million different directions. And one of the reasons I've really got into hard conditioning work, whether it's the assault bike or running sprints, where I always say unless I'm putting myself through some intense suffering, it's the only way I can really turn my brain off and just be in the moment. And with the sauna, I can relax in there, but I'm still thinking about business and a million different things. When I take the sauna now and contrast it with the ice, my mind is clear.
It's done.
Yeah, it's done. When I'm in that ice and I'm looking out in my woods, it's like I see colors, I hear the birds, I feel the air on my face, I think about my breathing, and that's really all I think about. And it's really hard for me to get to that state. And so it's a very, beneficial thing for me, because then I feel like after that, then the rest of the day I feel it's easier for me to concentrate on one thing versus thinking about 30 different things at once.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think what adds to that, and you can relate, doing it in a stock tank, the position it's so uncomfortable and you're already in an uncomfortable state. So for me, I find that like my mind, right, it's busy. It's also thinking about like, how can I get more comfortable in this, stock tank? But with the ice barrel, like the position is so natural to engage the water. It's like the most comfortable position to be in an uncomfortable state.
Well, this might sound, kind of stupid, but I think like when I would do the ice in the stock tank and I would lay down, there's also kind of that fear of drowning.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of laying back. You feel like I could slip under the water. that anxiety, like our natural fear of drowning, goes away when you're in the barrel because you're just I'm just crouched down.
Yeah.
I can stand up at any time.
Yeah, you're fully engaged. Yeah, in control. Yeah, totally.
So, all right, well, let's talk some more about like the actual health benefits of the ice bath, because this is what I'm interested in. I want to learn more about.
Sure.
I mean, I know obviously, the stress relief and, kind of general, whether it's, with an immune response or, anti-inflammation, things like that. But I wanted to hear you kind of dig into the details a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing you know much more about this than I do.
Yeah, if I get in the weeds here, you're going to have to tell me to stop.
No, I'm here to learn, so tell me.
Yeah, I mean, so just like the quick overview here. So like the short-term benefits of cold therapy, right? You have muscle relief, pain relief, right? You'll immediately notice a boost in your mood and energy levels, help improve sleep. Consistent and regular ice baths, cold showers, exposure to the cold will help alleviate symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, and long term, it'll even stave off cognitive decline. Quite a few studies are starting to show how cold is impacting like cognitive decline and different diseases, which is great. So that's like the short overview, but it does a lot more. And one of the things I like to talk about is like it's useful stress. So there's like a bunch of different types of stress in life, and our bodies get wired to that stress. So like getting chased by a bear is stressful, right?
And we have no control over that stress.
No control. Yeah, it's fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
But like we run around, and if, we want to buy a pair of shoes and they're sold out at the store, that develops a bit of stress in us, right? Here in the modern world, how we consume develops stress, what we eat. It's this non-useful stress. It's very toxic. And so we need to reset our bodies to what real stress is, so that when we're driving in traffic and somebody's yelling at us, we're not developing a stress response inside.
Well, I always say that, when you suffer in the gym, when you can take yourself to what I call the dark place on the assault bike, for example, it turns down the volume on everything else in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of applies here too. If you can elicit that stress response, but you have control over it during a run, during a bike, during an ice bath, you're not getting stressed out because someone pulled out in front of you in traffic. It's like, you know what? This doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I'm going to just let this go. I'm not going to allow my heart rate to go through the roof over this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
Go ahead.
No, I completely agree. So, right, we're resetting the stress response in the body. Our vagus nerve, we need to get that stimulated. That affects our central nervous system and our autonomic nervous system. And
that nerve runs where? The back of the neck,
Yeah,
correct?
back of the neck. So when you're in your ice barrel or whatever receptacle you're using, whatever way you are trying to get exposed to cold, make sure that you sink down in there so that the cold hits the back of the neck.
See, and I did not know this. And then someone commented on my video or my picture or something the other day, and they said, Coach, you got to get your vagus nerve, blah, blah. And I always do a plunge at the end, but I was not aware of that. So I actually had it exposed.
Yeah.
I haven't even been getting the full benefits yet.
Yeah, you'll get there. It's hard to get your shoulders down in the beginning. But super important to get your shoulders all the way down.
Okay.
You are still getting benefits, especially, right? You have like vasoconstriction and heart rate variability. So there's a lot of other benefits that you're still getting. But with the vagus nerve, it's like these strands of nerves that are running down your body, and they're helping everything function properly. And there's a few ways to simulate it, but cold is one of like the strongest. And on our website, icebarrel.com, we have a science page, and we have taken and compiled the science of cold therapy, and we've made it really, really easy to understand, to read, to digest. So that's like a great resource. And then we also write a lot of blogs on like how cold therapy affects Alzheimer's, how cold therapy affects weight loss, things like that. So there's a ton of information there. Some of the other ways, like cold therapy, it's like one of the strongest antidepressant, anti-anxiety relievers, because it releases what's called norepinephrine in the body. And that's just, it's like extremely like calming and soothing, to the body and to the brain. So you want to tap into that. It's interesting, because you do build up a tolerance to the cold. And so you do need to, like, over time, you want to play with temperature and time in the barrel to continue to maximize and get the best benefits. And again, we have a lot of research on that as well.
All right. So my wife does the sauna.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get her to do the ice. Now, she is someone that, and she's probably going to be mad at me for even talking about this, but she does not handle stress very well. Sure. She gets stressed out very easily. She's a real estate agent, which can be, I wouldn't say high pressure sales, but there's high stakes involved, especially in this market, So she does not handle stress very well. I've been trying to tell her, I'm like, I think that you need to experience the cold contrasting with the sauna. But she also hates the cold. Right. She's someone that, just cold in general. Her feet are always cold. Her hands are always cold. She don't like to go. She's the one that stays inside and makes hot chocolate while I take the kids sled riding. She's just not a person that enjoys the cold whatsoever. What do I tell her to convince her to try the cold this weekend with me when I do it, Saturday morning?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few different ways I think to look at this. I was talking to a gentleman the other day who has an ice barrel. He's had it for over a year now, and he was saying how when the suffering in his life gets to a certain point, he gets way more consistent with the ice barrel. And so it's interesting. It's you're going to have a pain in one area of life. And is it going to be the pain of the ice barrel, or is it going to be the pain of the stress? And so I think perspective on it, right, is a really good way. The benefits and the knowledge of the benefits have to outweigh the suffering, But yeah, I mean,
probably just the same reason I didn't like the cold tub at Ohio State. Yeah, I looked at it as this feels worse than the swelling in my knee feels. Yeah, exactly. So this doesn't feel worth it to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible stress reliever. At the end of the day, when I'm home or coming home, I love to jump in my ice barrel before I start interacting with my kids, because I'm in a much better headspace when I take that time to completely come down.
Kind of reset you.
Reset, yeah. And then I'm ending the day and I'm ending the night proud of the time that I've spent, the way that I interacted, versus coming home stressed out and not giving the right time and resources to the things that I love most. But my wife and I, we love to do it together. And that has, when we were doing it consistently together, and right there with her, that helped her tremendously. And we kind of built a habit out of it. And then it became this thing that we really looked forward to, put the kids to bed, and we go do hot, cold together.
So are you guys doing both in separate barrels, or is it one barrel? Where you're trading off, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're trading off. So I have
because I'm picturing you guys are in barrels across from each other, staring down who's gonna break first.
Yeah, no, it's a lot more fun than that. That would be me and a buddy.
Yeah.
But no, we're barrels side by side. One's at 104, and then one is at right around 43 degrees, and we're just switching in a minute, then out in in the cold for 1 to 2 minutes, then in the hot for 45 seconds, and then back and forth. And you build up a craving for the contrast of it.
Oh yeah. No, I'll tell you, when Wednesday morning, so I kind of started this thing where Wednesday mornings at sunrise, I do some sprints, and then I have some guys over and we do fire and ice before we come in here to work. I've only done the past couple weeks, but it's kind of our new thing, right? Yeah. And wait, where was I going with this? What were you just talking about?
The contrast. It's you.
Oh yes. Yeah. So within an hour or so, by the time I get to work, I'm almost I'm still thinking about next time I'm going to do it. You start kind of craving it. It does become addictive in a way because of the way it makes you feel, because of the endorphins.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It really is.
Yeah. So tell your wife she just needs to try it once. I have never put anybody through. I've given out thousands of ice baths now.
Yeah.
I have never seen anybody get in an ice barrel and come out and say they regret it, they didn't like it, it wasn't enjoyable. Everybody comes out with a smile, and everybody says, I could have been in longer. So you just got to try it once.
So what's the longest? Do you guys ever do the dunks under the ice? Where you submerge head under the ice?
In the barrel or in lakes?
Or in the barrel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What's the longest you've seen someone under the ice?
Probably around it depends on temperature, but the coldest that I've seen was probably myself. I was under there for 1:20 was the longest I've been under.
All right. I figured you were going to say something along those lines. Yeah. I got a good one for you though.
Okay.
All right. So in full disclosure, I've only made it 45 seconds. That's my longest under the ice.
There you go.
So this was, man, it actually must have been last summer now. And time starts flying by, don't it? But we were down at Brian Peters and we were doing a fire and ice session. I brought my friend, Coach Tom Ryan, who's the head coach for the wrestling team at Ohio State. And he is man, he might be 10 years old. He's 52, 51, 52. And he's still an absolute savage. You know, I mean, he wrestled at Iowa. He's been the Ohio State coach now for well over a decade. He's still on the mats with the guys every day. He's an absolute animal. And there's no one I've met that enjoys suffering more than this guy, right? Now, he's only like 1 week post-COVID. Like, he just got cleared from COVID, you know, so he hadn't been working out or anything. He was very sick with COVID. But I was like, hey, I want you to come down and try fire and ice with us. So he came down. And the first time he got in the ice, I mean, he had a hard time even getting down into the ice, all right? And so then at the end, we're like, okay, well, now we're going to, for the third round, we're going to all submerge, see how long we can go. And as you know, with the higher the better your aerobic capacity is, then the longer you can hold your breath.
Sure.
And if you can control your emotions, then you can probably stay under the ice longer. And so I had some of our other college wrestlers down there, and these guys are, you know, the best of the best, very elite athletes. And I think my guy Colin Moore, who was an Olympic alternate, maybe made it like a minute 30.
Yeah.
And so then Coach Ryan is going to go last. Now, granted, like the first 2 times he had a hard time even getting in the ice, but now he's seen his athlete go a minute 30. He gets under the ice, a minute goes by. I'm thinking like, all right, he can come up anytime now. We get to a minute 30, and now I'm thinking like, did he pass out? Did he have a heart? He made it 2 minutes.
That's incredible.
Under the ice, incredible, right? So he's just the toughest bastard you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
And just it shows the power of the mind. He went from like he could barely get under the ice to now he's fully submerged and held his breath for 2 minutes under the ice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. It's totally a mind game.
It is, really.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
And I still haven't made it a minute yet, so I guess I'm mentally weak when it comes to that.
You'll get there. You'll get there. We all have our areas.
Yeah. So, all right. So we touched on kind of the mental benefits, a lot of it. Has there been a lot of research about maybe because I do remember hearing something. This would have been years ago, and they were talking about there was kind of like an argument in the strength coach community about testosterone production in cold. And so there was kind of an argument about like, well, ice and cold can lower testosterone production.
Yeah.
Has there been any more recent research concerning either testosterone or human growth hormone? Because I know there's a lot of stuff on the hot side with sauna work. Are you aware of anything like that with ice? Yeah.
So we actually wrote a blog on cold therapy and the effects on testosterone. So
break the facts down for me.
Yeah. Well, it's complicated.
Yeah.
But to simplify it, it's time. It's when you do it.
Okay.
Right. And so there are certain times, depending on what your fitness goals are and the type of conditioning work that you're doing. So if you're like a bodybuilder or you're working on building muscle, right? It's not the right idea to go take an ice bath like right afterwards. You need to give yourself time to recover and let the circulation in your muscles stay consistent with where you're at, because you can like reduce the effects of the muscle growth.
Basically that anabolic response after the workout, you need to let that happen.
Let it happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me, I'm working on building muscle right now. So I work out in the morning and then I take my ice bath in the evening.
It's a separate session.
Completely separate. There's enough time that's gone by.
Now, would you say that's probably the same for, let's say, like intense conditioning? So let's say like my routine right now is I like to do the hill sprints in the morning before I do the fire and ice, but I wouldn't want to get in the ice initially. I would want to go
heat first.
Right.
Yeah, heat first. Now, where it is applicable, people that are doing like endurance, like marathons, Ironmans, them finishing that race and getting right into the ice is super important for their recovery. That's going to
limit the inflammation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And in some case, when you're bodybuilding, you need a level of inflammation, right? You want that. So again, depending on your goals and what you're doing, it's super important to like time it properly.
I think that's kind of a good example of why it's important to understand not just what to do, but why to do it.
Exactly.
I always say, like when we talk about strength conditioning, almost, every strength coach out there or every wrestling coach out there, they kind of know the pieces. They might know, okay, we need to do deadlifts. We need to do pull-ups. We should be doing rope climbs. They know these different things that are good for wrestling, but if you don't understand how to put them together, when to utilize them, what the programming should look like, then sometimes you can do almost more harm than good. Or at the very least, you're not going to be getting the full benefit out of whatever you're using. You need to understand the whys, not just the whys and the whens, not just the what.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, cold therapy, there's a bunch of studies on how it affects sleep and improves sleep, which is great. But like, you want to take like for ample, because you are going to get like a little boost of energy, right? So like, don't take an ice bath and then climb right in bed, right? So like, I agree. There's timing to this type of
I feel like that would kind of waste the experience anyway, because then that clarity that you get afterwards, like I want to go throughout my day with that feeling.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like if you did it right before bed, it would be kind of a waste of it anyway, because then you're just going to sleep through it.
Yeah.
I still always sleep like a baby. I shouldn't say sleep like a baby. My baby's never slept well.
Right.
Hopefully, I know you have a 1-year-old. Hopefully he sleeps well, but my kids were terrible sleepers.
Yeah, no. I mean, the little guy, he's still not fully sleeping through the night. So no, we're still getting up with him.
Maybe he needs to start the ice bath.
I know.
You need like a toddler edition of the ice barrel, the bumbo seat in the middle or whatever.
That's awesome.
All right, man. Well, I'll tell you what, go ahead and let us know, like, where can they find out more information? Give us, the blog, the rundown, where they can follow you on social, all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So to order an ice barrel, you just go to icebarrel.com /blog to find our blog. You can also find it in like the footer or in Learn More. We have the scientific page. We wrote a white paper on cold therapy, which is an incredible research, and it dives really deep into the science of the vagus nerve and how it's affected. And then you can find out more information on like the product page as well about the ice barrel. It has a lifetime warranty on it. It's US made, which is great. So
made right here in Ohio.
Yeah, in Ohio. Yep. Yeah, and then our Instagram, you can just see content from. We love to post photos of our customers, just because it's real, right? It's not like overproduced stuff. It's just like real. This is people's real life experience. So if you go to @icebarrel, you can follow us on Instagram and see what everybody's doing. It's pretty crazy.
Wyatt, I really appreciate you coming in today and kind of sharing your knowledge. I'm going to go on the blog and dig a little bit deeper, but even just the stuff we touched on today, I learned some stuff. I know I need to get a little bit deeper down into the barrel as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.